In less than 150 years, the Mughals are wiped out of existence by the British. It's debatable, let's not go into this whole Hindu-Muslim bhai-bhai. That actual Hindu-Muslim bhai-bhai never existed. I'm not a religious Hindu, I'm a spiritual Hindu is meaningless. You will neither be religious nor be spiritual in that case. Hindu civilization is being suppressed. Its energies are being muzzled by the Indian political state.
The following is a conversation with Sandeep Balakrishna. Sandeep is a historian. He is the author of the Dharma Dispatch blog and also the author of a book called Invaders and Infidels, among others. Please subscribe and enjoy the conversation. Sandeep ji, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you on.
Thank you.
So the Mughal Empire is now crumbling. It's the 18th century. The British power is rising. They have made a foothold in Bengal, and from there they expand. Eventually they defeat the Marathas and they take over much of India. So now there's a different kind of power in India. A foreign power, the Turks, the Mughals were foreigners. Now we have the Europeans, the British mainly. So what changes do they make that contribute to our mental colonization?
Yeah, okay. So let's do a slight rewind.
Okay.
Before the British actually come in and do their colonizing thing and rest of it. It begins with Vasco da Gama's discovery of India.
Right.
Okay, that's where the formal Western European intervention into India begins.
Yes.
And, we'll squeeze the whole thing, the Vasco da Gama thing. Extremely brutal guy. He was basically a pirate.
Yes.
A barbarian. And a committed Christian fanatic. And after that, around the same time or coinciding around with the same time, the Dutch also come.
The Dutch, right.
So by the mid 16th century, Portuguese have a presence and some very minor Dutch people, but more so Portuguese and even Italians. Even Italians.
All right.
They travel extensively in southern India.
Okay.
So some of the materials for reconstructing the history of the Vijayanagara Empire
comes from Italians?
Comes from Italians and Portuguese travelers.
Okay.
So that is the thing. So they already have a presence, but they are no means yet colonizers. That happens, with successors of this fellow, Vasco da Gama. Look, these guys have no compunctions. So they come here to trade with you, meaning you come as a supplicant. You're not equals, boss.
Yes.
We didn't go out. We didn't say, look, I want to do business with you. You came here because you needed it.
Yes.
You needed the gold and the money and the resources from India, products, materials from India, so that you can somehow maintain your bankrupt economies in Europe. What was the economic condition of Portugal? Comparable to any minor empire in India.
Okay.
Kingdom in India. It was pathetic. So we have to keep this in mind.
Right.
That's the reason they came here. And the route to India, remember the colonization, the modern story of Western colonization begins with India.
Yes.
It is seeded by India, by the desire to do business with India, because the Muslims have blocked the traditional trading routes in the Asian sector.
Yes.
So that is the thing. The role of the Portuguese interventions in India has been severely understudied.
Okay.
It merits several volumes
I see,
on its own right. There's abundant information about that part. But this fellow comes here and he meets with the Samutiri. Yes. Zamorin can mean anything, sir. Which language is Zamorin?
No language.
It is Portuguese.
Well, yeah.
It is Samutiri. Samutiri means that which is the lord of the sea.
Yes.
Samudra.
Yes.
So he meets with him and you begin barely a few years or a few months. You start waging war on Indian soil.
Yes. Cannons and all that, right? Yes.
So, no, cannons happen much later.
From the ships?
Yeah, ships land there, but yeah, gunfire basically. So you ravage the whole of Malabar region. So that's, we'll digress. But eventually the Dutch begin to set up factories in what is known as Krangenore. Along the Malabar coast, they set up spice factories.
Okay.
So that is followed by the brutal conquest of Goa, Gomantaka. So there, the infamous Inquisition.
Yes.
Basically genocide of Hindus, torture and genocide of Hindus. That happens there. What the Portuguese brutality, that story tells us, is that if you're so barbaric in your methods, you will immediately evoke hostility from the local people.
Yes.
This is why the word Turushka is so hated even today.
Okay.
The memories of the barbarism, for no fault of us.
Yes.
No fault of Hindus. You could have waged war in the regular means. You could have had a more refined, a more cultured sense of interaction. That never happened. You were branded as kafirs, then zimmis. Conversion, enslavement. During Mahmud of Ghazni's time, the first act of industrial scale slave taking happens in India. It is the first time that this kind of slave taking happens in India. He transports all these slaves to the lucrative slave markets in Central Asia, the Arabian region, going all the way up to Egypt and even some parts of Europe.
Okay.
And in Bukhara and other places, surrounding regions, there are slave markets.
Samarkand.
And the merchants, the people who buy slaves, right? They send a message to Ghazni saying, look, you are killing the slave market.
Flooding it.
There is an oversupply of slaves from India. We don't want them.
So many
of them. So, all these things happen. That is why Hindus preserve these indignities, the memories of these indignities. Treating women as war booty.
Yes.
And never the case in any war between two Hindu kings. Never the case. It's not happened. It is a pure act of adharma. And the strictest punishment is prescribed.
Yes.
And the Hindu kings would never do that.
Yes.
It was unthinkable. Let's put it
Totally.
So, coming back to the Portuguese, so their power was pretty much confined to Goa and parts of that. And they also had frequent clashes with the Dutch.
Okay.
So, while that was happening, by the time we get to early part of the 17th century, in 1608 or 1610, the British come in first. They land in Surat.
Yes.
So Thomas Roe, he takes an embassy to Jahangir. And, he's favored by Jahangir for some time. So step by step, they begin to study. They send more officials from East India Company. All this happens, and there are rival business corporations in England who want a piece of the Indian market. All these things keep happening, and the wars between these rival British business houses, those wars are fought in the English Parliament.
In the English Parliament, right.
So some of these guys would buy out some MPs.
Yes.
So by the time of Aurangzeb, you had another East India Company kind of thing, another outfit for trading with India. They buy out a guy called William Morris. So when he lands here, he comes to Machilipatnam, and there his efforts to get a farman from the Mughal officers, they are blocked by officers of the East India Company.
I see.
So, it's very interesting. I'll come to that later. So, Thomas Roe, his embassy, and this guy is so disgusting that, Thomas Roe finally, how he gains the favor of Jahangir? By making him drink cartloads of beer.
Beer. Okay.
That is the first time. So beer, he feeds him beer, and Jahangir is delighted. He's an alcoholic.
He was an alcoholic, yes.
Totally. So no surprise there. So he actually coaches Jahangir in the art of brewing beer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Common interest.
Jahangir is mightily pleased, so he gives him a farman to set up a factory in Surat.
Okay.
So, but the story doesn't end there. He goes to Surat. There is one some Asaf, somebody in Surat. He's a governor there. He'll say, "ठीक है, तुम सुल्तान से फरमान लाए हो. What about me?"
Okay, I need a cut of the action.
So उसको भी देना है. देगा, दिया. So then slowly the British commercial activity begins to expand, take root in the western coast. During Jahangir's time and other thing. Then by Shah Jahan's time, other actors come into play. There is this fellow, what's his name? Tavernier, Bernier, all these people come. French people, Italians, they come there, and there are some Jesuits also who come here from Portuguese.
Yes, the Jesuits.
Voyages to the East Indies. It's a thick compilation in about 7 volumes, if I'm not mistaken. They record each and every minute detail about, how the field in India is, in this heathen land is, whether it is prepared or not to accept the message of our Lord Jesus Christ.
Okay.
So you have those accounts also. The scene is pretty much chaotic in one sense, confused. Why I'm saying all this? The lead up to the east coast of India. Why I'm saying all this is that there is a theory by eminent historians that the Mughals were the protectors of India.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Right. They say that, all of India was under Mughal rule, and they paint it as the glorious Mughal Empire, right?
Yes.
Which naturally means that they were protectors of India. If you say that glorious Mughal rule throughout Hindustan and all that, what it means is that they were supposed to have done a good job
Yes.
of governing and protecting India, developing its economy. But the facts of history show the exact opposite picture.
Yes.
They did a rotten job of protecting India because they didn't care about that. They were bothered only about their empire.
Yes.
So the notion of whole of Hindustan as a geographical entity was never there. You can't draw these conclusions. So you have a scenario in Jahangir's time, because we are on the subject of European intervention into India. By the time of Jahangir, his administration was thoroughly corrupt. He had very little control over his bureaucracy and his aristocracy. Very little control. The real power behind the throne was his wife, Noor Jahan, who was worse than him.
Okay.
Yeah. And her brother.
I see.
Asaf Khan. Okay, so they pretty much held him as a puppet, indulged him, Anyway, some stories are really disgusting, so let's skip that.
Okay.
They're really, really disgusting.
I see.
Okay. So that was the thing. And farmans, they would sell farmans.
They would sell farmans.
Farmans,
Okay.
permits, if you will, in today's language. Okay, they would sell farmans, and even after giving money, the farman was not automatically guaranteed. So Sandeep goes to Asaf Khan with, say, 10,000 bucks, and Asaf says, okay, take it. He'll give the farman. Abhijit goes next day. He says, I want the farman for the same thing. Take 1 lakh plus 10% cut in every transaction.
Okay.
So my farman will be superseded.
I see. Wow.
So what is going to happen? You and I will fight.
Yes, right.
This is the story. And by the time we get to Aurangzeb's period, his period, I mean, most of us know his barbaric era. he spent much of his administration not administering or governing, but suppressing Hindus and trying to quell rebellions.
Okay.
And thereby bankrupting his treasury. That is thing. But by that time, Bengal is completely out of his control. More or less completely out of his control.
I see.
Okay. So there you have all petty chieftains, officers, in today's parlance, 4th division clerk. People like that run the whole place. So one of the most flourishing industries there in Bengal, in some parts of Bengal, close to the coast, is the arak industry. Arak industry.
Okay.
So the local fellows, officers there, they make illicit deals with the Dutch. Okay, there is a drink called Bule Ponge. Yeah, Bouleponge.
Okay.
I don't know how it is pronounced in Dutch, but yeah. So that is the arak of that the Dutch bring in.
I see.
And they trade it for the local arak. I mean, huge wars erupt. Their Dutch ships are set on fire. There's an element of chaos and rioting in the local population with the Dutch. It's a horrible scene,
I see.
basically, and there's pretty much nothing that Aurangzeb can do.
I see.
So, and European powers by then, they are not only warring with the locals, they are warring with each other. So the British have already made some inroads, and they figure out, most of these figure out that the most prosperous, some of the most prosperous commercial cities of India of that time were on the coast, on the east coast basically. I forget the coast exactly in Bengal. Let's keep it as Calcutta
Okay.
for convenience, because I've forgotten exactly that and Machilipatnam and Surat. These were the most prosperous states, and of course down south you had Kozhikode. So these were the most prosperous things, business
Centers.
districts, centers. And that is where you see most of the action happening.
Okay.
So factories are set up by Dutch and the British and the Portuguese also. And Portuguese are being slowly edged out of the game, and even the Dutch also. This is when, with the fall of what you call, who are they? With the fall of the Mughals, British realize that there is a game that can be played here. In such a large country, there is no one center of authority.
Yes.
But what have they been told by their predecessors from Thomas Roe onwards? That, it's a large country, whatever, the Mughal is the greatest power. In less than 150 years, the Mughals are wiped out of existence by the British. The whole thing is turned on its head. So from Aurangzeb to Bahadur Shah Zafar didn't take long.
Right, yes.
Correct?
Yes.
So what other East India Company officials who came here, they understood that, this is a country in decline. And some of the bureaucrats write as such, that, this Mughal, it can't sustain for long in Shah Jahan's time.
I see.
They predict that. So the one good thing about the British and other Europeans who came here, but mostly the British, was that they left minute records.
I see.
Why? Because this was a new market. India was a market.
Yes.
They didn't come here initially to build an empire. It was a new market, large market, lucrative market. So they had to note down every single detail and send that intelligence back to England. So you build, this is institutional knowledge. So you pass it on from generation to generation to generation.
Right.
So others who follow them will have this a fairly accurate knowledge, first-hand knowledge of India.
Right.
And then they build on that knowledge. That's how, so by that time, they figured out that all the empires in India, different political centers in India, hated each other basically.
Okay.
Or were at constant war with each other. And these people also brought new war technology, guns, more sophisticated for that time.
Yes.
Proper military discipline, this sort of thing, planning, strategy, all that. So, and they were also trading partners with many of our own kings and chieftains, right? So there, the decisive break obviously had to come in Bengal. The Battle of Plassey,
yes.
you know the background, all of us know the background.
Yes.
And that was the decisive turn, like I said. Once Clive had accomplished that, he also understood, he had already mastered the art of extorting the maximum plunder.
I see.
Through all measures, unfair taxation, this, sidelining kings, pitting them against each other, this kind of thing. Siraj-ud-Dawla versus that Mir Jafar, a familiar story.
Yes.
And Bengal was already a prosperous trading center, city. So you capture that. And plus, what our history textbooks gloss over is a very important point about the British victory in the Battle of Plassey. The Hindu population there looked at British as saviors.
As saviors. Okay.
Because they had the experience of from Jahangir till here, from 1600 to 1757.
Okay.
150 years of pure tyranny.
Right.
Oppression. Siraj-ud-Dawla was no angel, sir.
Oh, no, he was not.
So when you say Mir Jafar was a traitor to whom?
To Siraj, nobody else. Yeah.
So the Hindu society looked at them as deliverers, as liberators, as saviors. And they welcomed it.
I see.
And there was a king, Navakishan Sen. So he was rewarded by the British for helping, and he was the first person to start the Durga Puja that we see in Bengal today.
I see. Okay.
Until then, it was banned.
Okay. The Mughals had banned it for at least a century and a half. Okay.
But what also happened with Navakishan, he came from a deeply orthodox Hindu family. The Hindu society was itself orthodox. As he began to mix with the British officials, the elite of the British officials, the Hindu society, his citizens, began to resent that.
Okay.
They resented the fact that a white-skinned Mlecha could so freely step into our Maharaja's house.
I see.
But your Maharaja was beholden to them. He looked at them as a savior or whatever. So this was the strength of our culture, of our society, cultural rootedness. So even though Navakishan didn't like the British presence, there was little that he could do about it.
Okay.
So over a period of time, this led to a gradual process of subconscious colonization in the elite Bengali society.
I see.
There's no Macaulay minutes, no nothing.
Not yet.
But it was subconscious. You
Yes.
imbibe. I am an elite. I am a local elite. You are the elite from your country. You represent that class. So to that extent, we are equals. We sit at the same table. There is some cultural exchange happening. I learn about your society. You know about my society. Then in the process of this exchange, there's some subliminal, subconscious changes occur.
Right.
See, there is some John Dewey in New York. I don't know him. He doesn't exist because I don't know him. But if I meet him only once, my life would have changed to that extent.
Yes.
As long as I don't know him, it doesn't matter. I'm what I am.
Yes.
But he comes in and either he influences me even 0.001%. But there is some impact that happens even in one meeting.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
So you extrapolate this to a regular kind of interaction.
Yes.
So Navakishan had also to pay tribute to these people, the British. So they would also impose their own conditions. You can do this. You have to allow us to do that. This is how slowly what you call the slow poison.
Right.
It happened. So that was one phase. But once the British had captured such a central place, such a prosperous place, and they also had trading centers in other places, like I said, Surat, then Madras. Madras. So, like on the east coast, like I said. So, first victim was Calcutta, followed by Madras.
Madras, yes.
And you look at all the British presidencies in colonial rule. That is where the maximum amount of colonization has happened.
Right. And we can still see the impact.
We can still see the impact.
Right.
So anyway, back to this. Step by step that began, but the British colonization was largely enabled by Hindu kings, by their foolish internecine wars.
Right. Same story.
Same story.
Yes.
Again. Same story again. You don't learn from one defeat. You don't learn that in a battle, the Marathas, for example, you look at their methods of warfare. They would impose a treaty and break it unilaterally.
Okay.
This was never done. No Hindu king, would make a treaty and not honor it.
Yes, right.
They would, with impunity, they would break these treaties. All right, but Marathas never learned anything from that.
I see. Right.
So that colonization happened, military colonization didn't happen overnight. We enabled it.
I see.
It is an unfortunate fact, but it is a truth. So once that happened, it was very convenient, sir. So you conquered some of these, out of these streets. Doctrine of lapse.
Yes.
What does that even mean? Within 30 years, 35 princely states were pocketed by British.
Yes.
Doctrine of lapse. Who gave you the right to make something like that?
Yeah. That's right.
And our guys foolishly agreed. All of these treaties, there is a PhD thesis waiting to be written on how the British, with impunity, they rescinded those treaties or they tore it into pieces. But our kings foolishly abided by that in letter and spirit.
Incredible.
Okay, so even today, in some of these border disputes, territorial cases, even now, they refer to the treaties our princely states had made with the British.
True.
In independent India.
Yes, right. What's the need for that?
How? This is colonization.
This is colonization. You're continuing that.
Your whole government is colonized.
Yes.
So, so that's how they gobbled up. That's a familiar story. But once they did that, our Hindu society was still resilient. The one thing the British didn't touch for a long time was education.
Yes.
And the other thing was that they kept a strict watch against the missionaries.
Yes, initially they did. Yes.
Initially they did it.
Yes.
Because, the missionaries, they saw the missionaries as one of the greatest threats for their money-making enterprise.
They were here to make money. That was the only purpose, primary purpose. Yes.
And unlike the Muslim kings, who invaded then established empires, unlike them, from day one, the British knew, even when they had all of India under their control, the British were very clear about one thing, that some or the other day, we have to pack up our bags and leave.
Okay.
They didn't have this whole thing to settle down here permanently.
Right. They were clear about that.
They were very clear about it. They hated everything about this country, its geography, its climate, especially its climate.
Yeah, it's too hot for them. Yeah. Right.
Its society. All said and done, it is debatable, but all said and done, there is on the social level, societal level, there is a fundamental difference between British rule and Islamic rule. The Muslim society and Hindu society, on the ground, they mixed with each other. Two reasons. One, ordinary Muslims, majority of them were forcibly converted.
Yes. Yes.
So even today, several subsects in groups within the Muslim community follow Hindu customs.
Right.
Even today. It's debatable. Let's not go into this whole Hindu-Muslim bhai-bhai. That actual Hindu-Muslim bhai-bhai never existed. It is a fiction. All right. But the British, even at the level of the lowest clerk, widescreen British clerk, English clerk, he would never mix with the Indian society.
Right. So that was the difference.
So that's why they had all these enclaves,
Yes.
cantonments.
Yes, cantonments.
They were set up for this reason.
Right.
So you are a separate society within a society.
Right.
And they never let you forget that. So coming back to this colonization, this education was something that hadn't occurred to them for the longest time.
For the longest time.
It hadn't occurred to them. Then this missionary thing also had, that for various political reasons, eventually they were given permission.
Yes.
But what they understood was that to control this society, it's like taming a wild animal.
Yes, you break it.
You break it.
Yes. You break its spirit.
You break its spirit.
Yes.
To complete obedience,
Yes.
complete subservience, and once the master is satisfied that okay, it has my absolute obedience, it will not rebel, it won't make noise, then I will feed him with mutton chops, Mary biscuit.
Right.
This is what the process of colonization, this is how it began. But the social strength and the cultural rootedness was strong precisely because we stuck to our cultural roots in education, in the way we celebrated our festivals, in the way we did our trade, crafts, your informal exchanges, community building, this. So we never let go of that in face of whatever oppression.
Yes.
So how do you break that? You disenfranchise people at the level of education. You impoverish them by devising an economic policy that will benefit only you.
Right.
So your traditional methods of doing farming, agriculture are gone. And the communities, the leaders of communities, remember the Hindu society is nothing but an agglomeration of different communities which are bound by invisible cultural and civilizational threads, and to which all of us, all communities are bound, and they pay an unenforceable obedience. This is what has kept us alive. So what unites, you are in Bombay.
Yes.
Why does Kashi unite you and me?
It's a civilizational thread.
Correct.
Yes.
So when somebody is going on a yatra, it is very common even today to see, buy 1 minute ruko, and he'll give you 100 rupees and say, chada de.
Yes.
Chada. Why does this happen? So they saw that and tried to break that. One way to do that was to classify these communities.
Classification, yes.
Okay, the census that happened was preceded by this. So the communities that gave them the most trouble. And mind you, this is a period after the conquest was complete, after all the princely states were, they had come under British control. Okay, nominal independence, quasi-autonomy, but you can't maintain an army, that's all.
Yes.
A state which has no army
is not a state. It's not a sovereign state.
Because the king is a king in name.
Yes.
That's all.
Yes.
So, this happened after that. There were still troublemakers. And they classified these troublemakers, bit by bit, clearly identified them and branded them as a robber class.
Robber class.
Thug is a classic example.
Thuggy, yes, thug.
Okay. You look at the page. If you find a term for a community that has a pejorative or a criminal meaning, take it from me, guaranteed, that it has been criminalized by the British.
By the British.
By passing a law.
Right.
So anything that they found inconvenient, either to maintain their hold on India or to extract as much as possible, to overcome that problem, a law would be passed. So some of these communities would submit to, they'd say, "ठीक है, तुम ही हमारा master हो." So what would they do? They would give them privileged positions such that, and empower them, give them legal powers, protection, to extract their former neighbors, to oppress their former neighbors. Classic case is the Bengal Revenue Administration. It is horrifying. So zamindars,
Yes.
who would, this Bollywood stereotype is there, all zamindars are bad, oppressive.
Yes.
They were pushed into that by British.
Right.
So a zamindar with, say, 5,000 acres would actually be the protector and savior of all the farmers under him. For the longest time, a zamindar would say, or any wealthy man would tell a poor man that, you cannot wear the clothes that I am wearing. But he never said, you cannot eat less than me.
Right, yes.
So you catch hold of those zamindars and say, look, I don't care. This happened under Cornwallis.
Cornwallis.
Look, I don't care. You were paying, earlier he was not paying tribute to anybody. Now after the British conquered, Bengal, it came under British rule. He would say, look, the regime has changed. You have to pay me 1 lakh rupees every year. I don't care how you get it. How do? You can't generate 1 lakh from your land.
Yes.
At the most, you can generate 50,000, not even 50,000. In some cases, for 7,000.
Okay.
How do you generate 1 lakh without oppression? Yeah?
Yes.
So, जो तुम्हारा दाता था, वो तुम्हारा दानव बन गया.
Right.
So, how do you resolve this problem? You set up courts for that.
You set up courts, a judiciary.
Judicial courts.
That's nice.
This is a problem that hadn't existed. So, you make a law for that, and then you appoint a British judge, and then you allow these Indians to quarrel among themselves. And he will give you the final verdict. You see the levels at which this happens.
Yes.
So your spirit is broken, but your culture is still intact, more or less intact. That is when they figured out that perhaps the most effective way is, to obtain complete obedience, and you fundamentally transform the basic nature of the civilization. Education.
Education.
That is when they figured this out.
Okay.
And once, you produce one generation, then it becomes easy. You tie your entire, livelihood to this education. Then after that, the job is easy.
Yeah.
And the concomitant thing with English education was a destruction, complete annihilation of our age-old system of education. The beautiful tree, Dharampal's book,
Yes.
makes for painful reading, but you should read it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, thousands of Sanskrit schools which were functioning for 3,000 years,
Yes.
2,000 years, overnight they were closed.
Right.
So, people who the society until then had been respecting as Vidwans and Pandits, learned people, like really learned people,
Yes.
their next generation, with the same kind of talent, the same kind of thing, their next generation was not guaranteed a livelihood.
Right.
So the only way that they could make a decent living and lead an honorable, self-respecting life was to become a clerk in the British bureaucracy.
Right.
And from then the downfall is easy.
So that's where we are. And we have continued this
We have
post 1947. We've made it worse.
Unfortunately.
So we all converse in English. Today you can't get a good job without, if you can't speak good English.
Yeah.
In India.
Yeah, you can't.
Right.
Yeah.
So now that we've understood and identified the roots of our mental colonization, how do we address this today?
Unfortunately, the problem is it's not only widespread, it is definitely widespread, but it is so deep-rooted.
It's extremely deep-rooted.
Extremely deep-rooted, and it's getting worse by the day.
It actually is getting worse.
Right. And we have almost reached a point that has made it irreversible.
Yes.
So language is not just a medium of communication. Sorry, there's more to it than that. That is by defining language as merely a medium of communication, it is the worst form or the least form of defining it. The most basic form of defining it. But is it true? No. It is much. Language is culture. Culture is language.
Language is a carrier of culture, expressor of culture.
Correct.
Yes.
So now, if you want to decolonize this, you have to recover your culture.
Now, how do we do that? The first step is the language.
No, not even language, sir. I'll tell you the language where this all comes from. Where you have to seek the solutions. You have to seek the solutions at home.
At home.
How many Hindu homes exist today in the real sense of the term?
It's a good question.
Correct.
Yes.
So there was an English professor or somebody, a nice anecdote. But he was a deeply traditional Hindu. And wherever he went to all even fancy places, he would wear his dhoti, his regular thing, traditional clothes, and wear a peta. This was in the 1960s.
Okay.
So wherever he went. So in a flight, one of these colonized Hindus, his friend or his colleague or somebody, he met him and he said, he was kind of, taken aback. He said, yeah, what is this? What is this dressing? You are a professor of English, but look at this, how you have dressed. So he says, sir, my English gives me this, my salary. It helps me, my job as an English professor. Gives me the salary and the resources to run my house. But my real roots, I'm most comfortable with this peta and my stone idols.
Right.
So, this was he was still rooted.
Yes.
So, he knew where to place the English language.
Right.
So, those generations are gone now.
Yes.
And if you want to compulsorily, I'm not against this, turning the thing. Sorry, let me put it this way. All Indian languages are dying.
Yes, they are dying.
Why? Because the Hindu society and the Hindu culture they are dying because Hindu culture has been progressively deracinated and weakened.
Yes.
Your languages will survive only if the Hindu Dharma survives. These are all interconnected webs. Now, if you see a sculpture on a temple, for example, it has a direct connection with Natya Shastra.
Natya Shastra.
Your classical music ka jo bhi lyrics hai,
Yes.
they would be meaningless. They wouldn't have been written, rather. They wouldn't have been written without a knowledge of your epics and Puranas.
Of course. Yes.
So there's a small line in Tyagaraja Kriti. So he's addressing Rama. And he's basically complaining against Rama. That, look at you. You're heartless.
Okay.
An accomplished Vidwan, a great grammarian like Hanumanta, who is well versed in all the Shastras. When he comes to meet you for the first time, okay, you're so arrogant that you don't even reply to him. So the words are Chaduvulanni Telisi, Shankaram Shudaina. He doesn't mention the name of Hanumanta.
Okay.
He just describes that episode in Ramayana, that first meeting between Hanuman and Rama in Ramayana.
Okay.
In just 10 or 15 letters.
Okay.
So unless you have that entire lore in your mind, in your active consciousness,
that will be meaningless otherwise.
Yeah.
Right.
So when you have to decolonize, you have to decolonize at this level. When you, I'm not a religious Hindu, I'm a spiritual Hindu is meaningless. You will neither be religious nor be spiritual in that case. You have to look at everything in a wholesome fashion.
Right.
Right? So, if you take out English, if you replace English with Indian languages, what are the equipment, what is the kind of equipment, what are the ingredients that you have to recover and refashion for your own time? Remember, when you do this kind of decolonization overnight, it will disrupt the existing order which is based on English education.
Absolutely, yes. It has to be done phase by phase, step by step.
So, that education begins at home.
Right.
I don't know how far I've answered this question, but
I get what you mean. So we've got to teach our own kids our own ways, our own epics, our lore, our languages.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. But what should the government do? What should the government do?
You get a government you deserve.
Right. So are you optimistic that we will eventually decolonize in a certain time frame, perhaps?
We should all work on on optimism that a better day would come. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to recover Ayodhya.
True.
It took the optimism and hard work of at least 2.5 generations to achieve what we did in Ayodhya.
Right. So the journey ahead will be long and arduous. But we have to be optimistic.
We have to be optimistic.
We have to
keep on doing this.
Striving.
The thing is that the Hindu civilization is being suppressed. Its energies are being muzzled by the Indian political state.
Right.
Which is an artificial creation, which never existed until the British came.
And it's continuing. It's the same creature.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that would have been possible after 1947. We had a good cream of elites in the political system.
We had a good opportunity there.
But look at the caliber of politicians. You show me both at the state and the center level, irrespective of parties, which politician shows even one iota of basic samskara, a basic refinement of speech. So this is a character and temperament of our people, sir. Of our ruling class.
Ruling class.
ढंग से बात नहीं कर सकते ना. It all begins there.
Right.
Ideally, in our conception, which was also lived in real life, यहाँ का, they should be in sync.
Yes, in sync.
Corruption in speech happens after this is corrupted and this is corrupted.
Absolutely, yes. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So show me one such politician. I'm not saying all of them are like that. But what is the crassness? What is the qualification? They are so far removed from the people, which was never the case. They don't want to meet people except during election times. So this was never the case. The amount of centralization that has happened after independence is even worse than
during
British time.
Yes.
On the other hand, our kings, traditionally, even the princely states, barring some of them, they were not tyrants. Whenever India has been ruled by a Hindu king, there was never tyranny. The job of the king was only dushta shikshana, shishta rakshana. Punishment of evil, protection of the good people.
Right.
Nothing else constituted. Fine, he was the final arbiter of justice and all that. But that, after all the options were over,
right,
our method of resolving disputes, as far as possible, harsh punishments were not prescribed. So there are two things in jurisprudence, in our traditional jurisprudence. There is danda and there is prayashchitta.
Prayashchitta.
Okay. So sometimes with a small danda, meaning fine or a mild punishment, it would have been solved. Sometimes both are prescribed. Meaning, you pay a fine and then you go for 15 days to the temple in the village or town or whatever, and every evening you have to compulsorily light 50 lamps.
Okay.
What does this do? Every day you have been ordered by somebody. Otherwise you'll be put in jail or something, right?
Yes.
So that fear is also there. So every day you go and light lamps to the temple. There is a certain culturing already that happens. You're standing in front of God.
Absolutely.
It is a sacred place. What are the chances that this fellow will repeat that crime again?
I guess none. Yes.
Where is the scope for? So, you see how many, at what all levels that this culture operated. What is the need for this person to go to a Supreme Court or to a High Court? It is resolved right there.
Right, yes.
In the village, in the local community, in whatever town or whatever, that's all it is. And most of the times, this kind of thing would be decided by, justice would be decided even by the heads of the community.
You would not need to go further up.
That's all. So you keep postponing, you get adjournments, you don't even know this is an alien system.
Totally alien.
Right.
Yes.
So if you have 5 crore cases, even if you don't, there's one survey which says that even if no courts in the whole country will accept new cases starting now, and it begins to dispose the existing cases, it will take 320 years. क्या करके रखा हो यार देश को?
Yes, true.
And you're talking about judicial corruption. Judiciary is being, lampooned left and right. And they don't care. So where does this corruption happen? Here and here. This, it's a long drawn process, sir. So you have to get good people, not just qualified people.
Not just qualified. Good people. Today, qualifications are a dime a dozen.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yes. So it's going to be a long process ahead of us.
Long process, but you have to, like I said, get good people in positions of power.
Yes. In the system. Yes. Right. So that is the remedy.
Yeah, one of the remedies.
One of the remedies.
One of the most important remedies, actually.
Any other remedies?
There could be, but this is a good starting point because ultimately most of the things flows from political power.
Right.
So if there is a leader who can't feel for people, what is the point, sir?
There's no hope then.
Yeah.
Yes.
How far can a book take you? Although you have the best designed laws and safeguards and checks and balances, somebody has to implement them.
The implementation is the key to everything.
Who's the guy?
Yes. Right.
If Praja Vatsalaha, that was the definition, meaning one who is affectionate to the people.
Yes.
You have a system of overlordship here.
Yes. The system is the problem.
Yeah.
Actually.
So this happens when you blindly, unthinkingly import and impose something that never was born here.
Alien to us. Yes.
It was a system designed to oppress us, but that's a fact most of us know.
Yes.
The rulers simply vacated the bungalow and the new oppressors occupied it.
Right. Totally. So I hope this conversation at least opens people's minds and eyes to what's really happening.
I hope so.
And I hope that the viewers understand where the key to decolonization is.
Yes.
It's to get good people in positions of power into the system, and it starts at home.
Yeah.
Start connecting with your roots again.
Absolutely. So, another key point I forgot to mention in the context of this ruling class. The king, meaning the monarch, a Hindu king, was afraid of the people.
Afraid.
This when he had absolute power.
Okay.
None of us here have lived, under a absolute monarchy. Okay, but
yes,
there have been generations who have lived under the Mysore Wadeyars.
Okay.
Okay, fine. They were subjects of the British, but they had their own power. The royal monarchical power was still there. Unless they didn't interfere with the British or go against them, they could pretty much do to their people whatever they wanted,
Okay.
including oppressing them.
Okay.
In spite of that, they had a healthy respect and fear for the people.
I see.
Where is that? You are supposed to be, elected by popular vote. But ask yourself, are you really popular? You buy the popularity by lying to people. You project a different image of what you are. And to, magnify the lie, you hire PR agencies. You see where all this is going?
Yes, indeed, yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's a big issue, yes.
Yeah. This might sound idealistic, but if you don't have an ideal to live for,
we have to strive for an ideal. We do have to. We may not always reach there, but even if we reach there 80%, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah. You might not succeed, but you won't go wrong.
Yes, exactly. Sandeep ji, thank you so much for this incredibly detailed and fascinating conversation. I learned a lot, and I hope the audience also learns a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks once again for having me here.
Hope you enjoyed the conversation. Please share this on your Twitter, Instagram, and WhatsApp so that this podcast reaches a wider audience.